Roasteroma. Hello, dudes, dudettes, duders, and everyone in between, and welcome to How to Do Everything So You Don't Have to, the show where we teach you how to think like a producer. Mariya Takeuchi has excellent taste in cameras. We first spotted the Kodak Ektar H35N in her music video for Days of Love and decided to track one down to see how we like it. While our expectations for toy cameras stay reasonably low, within a role of shooting on the H35N, I accidentally fell in love with the camera, and now it's the one that I shoot on the most. I suspect that if you're a film hobbyist, a professional shooter, or even just a doting parent who wants to use film to capture your children growing up way too quickly, you might also find this camera becoming your go-to for snapshots. While it might not be my favorite camera in our collection, it certainly is the one that I use the most, and we'll get into the reasons why throughout this review. Beyond that, we'll cover the design and features of the H35N, and I do think you'll be surprised at just how versatile this camera is. We'll also talk about what it's like to shoot on the camera and share samples of images that we've taken. Regarding those images, everything featured in this video was processed and scanned at LA Film Lab with no touch-ups or corrections done by us. The images are as close to out of camera as you can get, and will include the film stock used for each shot as we show them. But before any of that, I'd like to talk about today's sponsor. All right, let's get into it. First up, design. The first thing to know is that this is a toy camera. So if you're used to shooting on a Mariya 645, you have to adjust your baseline going in. If you're looking for fidelity and control, this isn't the camera for you. If you're looking for low light performance, this isn't the camera for you. If you're looking for high resolution images, this definitely isn't the camera for you. While it doesn't boast any of the features typically associated with a recommendable camera, it's still the one I grab the most when heading out for a day, whether it's with the family or capturing BTS on sets. So, what is it? The Ektar H35N is a surprisingly well-equipped 35mm half-frame toy camera, and we're going to underline the word toy every time it comes up because this truly is a toy-class camera. It features a 22mm lens that operates at f11 when the flash is off and f8 when the flash is on, and the shutter is fixed at 1/100th of a second. There are more bells and whistles, but before we get into them, I'd like to crack this thing open and make sure we're all on the same page regarding what the H in H35N means. This is a half-frame camera, so it exposes two images on one frame of 35mm film, each one half the size of the frame. This effectively doubles the number of exposures, giving you 72 shots on a standard roll of 36, but the cost is that the resolution is cut in half. In actual use, the lower resolution doesn't really impact the image in a noticeable way because the ceiling is set by the crummy lens, not by the size of film placed behind that crummy lens. With the entire camera costing less than $60, the lens is obviously cheap, but not so cheap that beautiful images are out of reach. Indeed, we've captured quite a few shots that we're really happy with, a task that's made all the easier by the fact that you get 72 exposures per roll. This exposure count pushes you to shoot more, which means you'll try shots you might not have tried if you were locked to 36 exposures per roll, or, in the case of 120, a dozen. About that, 72 is a lot of shots. If you're used to being a little precious with your film stock, you'll have to let go of that impulse or you will never finish a roll. There is a frame counter on top of the camera, but it's pretty dodgy in its design, which isn't actually a problem. When you're shooting 72 images per roll, I can tell you exactly how many photos you have left at any given moment, and that is a lot, probably more than you need. And when you finally do hit that 72nd frame, you won't be surprised so much as relieved. There is a filter thread in front of the lens, which is a nice feature, but not one that we used in our testing because we don't have any 30.5mm filters. That said, we did test out every other feature on the camera, and there's a lot of them. There's a tripod hole on the bottom, which may seem like an odd inclusion on a point-and-shoot with a fixed shutter speed of 1/100th of a second. But on the top of the camera, there's a bulb shutter, which allows you to take exposures as long as you like. For example, here's a 30-second exposure from up at Big Bear Lake. The bulb shutter offers complete override of the camera, and not only can you take long exposures, you can also take multiple exposures without advancing the film, as seen in these photos here. On the front of the camera, you have two switches, one that turns on and off the flash, and another that engages or removes the star filter. The flash is functional, but obviously made with cheaper components. The flash ready light turns on before the flash is properly charged, and we've had more shots go off without the flash than with, even when the camera said that we're good to go. That said, when it does go off, it plays well with 200 and 400 ISO film and gives acceptable illumination on a very narrow plane. Because the lens is fixed, the 4 feet closest to the camera are functionally useless because nothing is in focus. The flash gives you decent exposure in the 5 to 8 foot range, which is narrow, but not really a problem because that's where most of your subjects are going to be when you're popping off snaps at a party, or you've got brain shake from playing with the girls in no man's land, and you get the money shot in the nick of time. Or really any time you've gone shooting. When the flash works, it's appropriate. Neither good nor bad, just appropriate. The star filter is a little less exciting, and if I'm being honest, I wish it had been an ND filter instead. Because you get so many shots on each roll, we find ourselves shooting in a lot of environments before switching stock. On this one roll, for example, we shot at a ski slope in the day and a lake at night. That's about as disparate as you can get in terms of environmental brightness, and there's no one stock that can cover both of them correctly. An 800 or 1600 ISO stock with the option to drop in an ND9 would have allowed for a bit more control than a star filter, but then this camera isn't designed for that type of photography. It's a toy camera. So let's get into what it is designed for. Shooting experience. I want to get one complaint about this camera out of the way before we get into the shooting experience, and it's a really minor gripe. Part of the reason that we shoot so much on this camera is that it fits perfectly into a breast pocket, which means that it's incredibly easy to grab when running out of the door with the family or to a shoot. Because the camera is small, it's the one I'm most likely to grab for snapshots. Because I'm using it for snapshots, I'm almost always doing something else when I grab the camera. Because I'm always doing something else, I want to use the camera with one hand, which is totally reasonable because it's so small. Here's the problem. The wind wheel is on the opposite side of the camera from the shutter button, which means you need 2 hands to operate this camera. It's easy to imagine a future version where the wind wheel is on the right side of the camera and can be fully operated with one hand. Other than that very minor gripe, shooting on this camera is largely a pleasant and often rewarding experience. A big part of that is the number of exposures you get per roll, which is fantastic for a couple of reasons. The first is that film is expensive, and if you're a hobbyist or operating on a budget, doubling the number of exposures you get is a great way to stretch your budget. Also, shooting 72 shots per roll forces you to shoot differently. When we're shooting medium format or full frame 35, we're planning shots and being relatively conservative with exposures throughout the day. 72 shots per roll pushes you to experiment more, pop off shots a little more recklessly, and try things you otherwise might not have tried. And that's why we love this camera, not just for family snaps, but for professional productions as well. We love using it to test film stocks before using them on projects where film shots are considered mission critical. The H35N is the perfect camera for putting film stocks through the paces to see how they behave in a wide variety of environments. While Kodak Gold 200 seems to be the ideal pairing with this camera, we've also shot HP5 Plus, Cinestill 400D, and Harman Phoenix. The H35N is a really constrained camera. You don't have control over shutter speed, iris, and focal length or distance. All you can do is point the camera, shoot the image, and let the chips fall where they might. Because the camera is so constrained, it keeps us from overthinking things and eliminates the need for a log as we shoot. Once you got the camera loaded, all that's left to do is wind the film and press the button. Over and over and over and over. Across the 72 shots, you'll get a pretty good idea of how any given stock behaves with minimal interference from the artist in a broad selection of environments and lighting conditions. That minimal interference thing is more important than you might think. Shooting on film teaches you to consider all of your decisions carefully. And it's a breath of fresh air to be shooting on film in a way that's built around play, experimentation, and rapid iteration, ideas that I associate more with digital photography than analog. That's why this quickly has become the camera I shoot on most, and not by a small margin either. Whether I'm going out with my family, capturing BTS, or taking photos on a shoot that I'm producing, this camera is always with me. So, who is this camera for? Well, at 60 bones, it's pretty much for anyone who wants one. As we continue to experiment with film, this has become the most essential camera in our analog arsenal. It lends itself well not just to family snaps, but also studio and field experimentation, not just with odd stocks, but deeper camera techniques like long exposure and multiple exposure. If you're just starting out in analog photography and want to play, the H35N offers terrific bang for your buck and gives you lots of space to play. If you're a seasoned photography vet who wants to iterate rapidly on stock tests and studio technique, the H35N offers terrific bang for your buck and will push you forward faster than a full frame or medium format camera because you'll be running double the experiments per roll when compared to a full frame camera. And when you hit the ceiling with this camera, the Pentax i7 is ready and waiting for you to continue your experimentation. The only person who might not enjoy this camera is someone who thinks a good photo is defined by creamy bokeh and subject sharpness. And if that's you, I'd still recommend this camera because it's a low-cost way to step outside your comfort zone and experiment with other ideas. So I say arigatou gozaimasu, Takeuchi-san, for introducing us to this wonderful little toy camera. It truly is the gift that keeps giving. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to take this thing out and shoot on it, which is exactly what you should be doing as well. So please, turn off YouTube and go take 72 photographs on one roll of film. I bet you dimes to dollars, at least one of them turns out great.